Starting the stream just a little bit early. Hello again, friends. We've had another update to the viewer here. I wonder what's new in this update. Looks like a bunch of bug smashing. That's pretty awesome. Oh wow. Looks like some good stuff in here. You know, I wish they'd done this like 10 years ago when it would have been really extra awesome. So, yeah, I'm just having lunch. Right now I'm eating a giant bowl of ramen noodles, like a huge bowl, like, you know, one of those giant bowls that you'd make like a salad for 15 people in. Just imagine you're watching an asthma video with, you know, the like mouth sounds and stuff, because I'm seriously noshing on these noodles. I just got off work. I spent 2 hours today cleaning out the attic of the office where I work, the administration office. Keep in mind, there was stuff that people had just been tossing and throwing up there for like over 10 years. Just about 13 years. So, you can imagine, like, what a treasure / trash trove that was. The first thing, literally the very first box that I took down, it was this really long, thin, rectangular box that had a double hot plate in it previously, but it was empty. And the first thing I noticed when I pull it out of the attic is that it's rustling inside, like really loud, and scrabbling and like moving around in my hands, because it turns out, like, I pop open the flap to see what's going on in there, and like a rat volcano, like literally 2 rats just come flying out of the top of this box, like shooting one to the right, one to the left. Scared the hell out of me. Somehow I didn't fall off of this precarious stool I was balancing on. And the rats, of course, just took leaping off throughout the office. They were like bouncing off the tables. It was crazy. And anyway, they'd made this huge nest inside. So yeah, like, the rest of the time was spent pulling stuff down off of the shelves and then like vacuuming up about a kilo of rat droppings that had accumulated up there over the last 13 years. Really interesting fact and cool thing that I found out is that rats apparently love eating snails. Like, they eat a lot of snails. You would not have believed how many snail shells there were up there that these rats had apparently just somehow got the snail out of the shell. I don't know how they managed to do that without cracking the shell, because it's like they literally chew through everything else. Like, there were holes in the drywall, probably the size of my hand, that these rats had chewed. It's almost like they eat drywall, like gypsum. Like, their stomachs have probably evolved to, like, digest gypsum. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, so they, like, destroy everything. Like, they would chew through half of a phone book. But then they basically would not chew through the shell of a snail to get the meat out. One of nature's many wonders. Alright, so, like it says in the description box, you know the drill. I'm just going to be doing some grid exploration. Oh yeah, and by the way, I think I've settled upon a schedule for this, what I'm informally referring to as a show. because it's kind of like a show. I mean, although this has always been a pet peeve of mine. If it's radio, it's not really a show. But since I'm actually showing things, it's video. I think I can get away with calling it a show. But yeah, I'm exploring the grid, so you don't have to. That's my official slogan for the Neo Toy Story Exploring Second Life show. So, here, are you ready? Are you ready? Listen. I'm gonna say it out loud. Exploring the grid, so you don't have to. That was my best, like, fake announcer voice. So yeah. My specific mission, in addition to totally unbiased randomness, which is my trademark, that's my secondary slogan, just joking, is to find exceptional and bizarre and otherworldly sims and experiences on the grid, because nothing stimulates me less than going to yet another 1001th beach paradise sim, or well landscaped fantasy forest sim, or winter wonderland sim. The list goes on and on. What I'm looking for are really cool sims, like last week, was it? I don't even know when I made the last one of these videos, but like the last video, the last sim I visited was this really cool water park, which admittedly not all that fantastical or unique, but still a lot more interesting than all the other sims I had visited previously. I kind of gave up on making a sim database of visited sims because I realized that after last week that I was just like revisiting, or not revisiting, but visiting so many sims concurrently that it would just be a real pain in the ass to keep track. And honestly, I feel like Second Life changes quite a bit, and so it's probably not all that likely that I am going to visit a sim that I've already been to, or if I have and I notice right away that it's the same, I can just leave really quickly. So probably making a database would be more work than it was actually worth. So this sim's called Mars, and it looks like I can see a normal landscape, like water and dirt and grass and stuff on the outer edges, but the internal structure, they've almost covered the entire sim surface. With a title like this, I'm thinking it's possible that it may be like a space sim. That's kind of my hope. So this is the first one I'm going to try right here. Got one of my cats is trying desperately to get to my ramen bowl, even though these things are total pigs and I feed them like more food than they could possibly need to survive. They live to eat. At least the big boy, the mange, aka Mango, that's his true passion in life. It's the one thing that gets him out of bed in the morning, is and everybody else in the house, because he meows incessantly for like an hour, starting at like 6:45 or so every morning to get his food. So already I'm like super disappointed with this, because even though, okay, in all fairness, it's a racetrack, right? That's super obvious. Super obvious. And it looks like a motorcycle racing track. I'm just gonna guess. But, so here's the kicker, right? The track is way up in the sky. So that's new and different. Like, you could do this in real life. with enough like superstructure, kind of like the water park we were talking about last week. Look at that pixelated roadway. Like you couldn't have afforded to use a slightly higher definition texture. You got 124 pixels to work with. I mean, come on. So instead of wasting my time trying to figure out how this whole thing works and ride a motorcycle or whatever on this racetrack, I'm just gonna fly. This one section I was a little interested in. Oh, it just wasn't rezzing. Or wait, that other side's where the jump is. So I at least want to get over there to where that jump is, because I think it's a jump. If not, oh no, it just hadn't rezzed yet. Okay, so it's just like a mesh object. There's no breaks in the track. So yeah, imagine this in real life. I think this would be pretty cool to have a vertically dimensional racetrack, because in real life the racetracks are always two-dimensional, more or less. Well, I mean, with minor variations, but it's not like they go vertically up several levels like a parking garage. Oh, this is cool. So like you leave the mountains down there and you come up into the second level and suddenly there's like a cityscape. So that's pretty cool. Like, I mean, it's like a skybox, so it's not like an actual three-dimensional city, but it's still pretty cool that you can see the transition in it. It looks fairly realistic. Like, I can imagine this conceptually being like a real thing. This looks like a watchtower or like a observation box, like for the VIP tickets, I guess. So let's see, I'm gonna fly up past the city. Escape, just want to see how high this goes. I'm up in the clouds. There's of course a hot dog stand and a gas station, for refueling. And it looks like, okay, we got another level. Wow, this is really going up there. So I'd say this qualifies. Oh, that's a low ceiling. I feel like you get decapitated there. And now we're in like a rocky, whoa, and the racetrack's made out of wood. It's like through the mountains. This is cool. Wow, that's some nice work there. Those arches. Oh, and a waterfall. This is cool. I actually almost wish that I had tried to do this experience according to the creator's sort of intended purpose. That's pretty cool, because this would be kind of neat to be like riding on with a motorcycle. It's a great track layout, I gotta say. Like, I'm really impressed. Like, it's elegant. It's not like overly realistic, but it's not like so bad that it's fake looking either. Wow, I'm like trying to get up there. I'm gonna take a little shortcut here because I want to get to the next level. I'm just assuming there's many levels to this racetrack. I'm trying to take sort of the optimal shortcut so for those who are watching, they can see like the gist of the track basically without having to go through the whole thing. And this would take a long time if you were driving a vehicle of some sort. You'd be driving on this road for like half an hour. Now, this was really smart of them, the way they designed it. The whole track, because it's vertical, it can exist in one sim, so they don't have any sim boundaries to worry about. Wow, now we're in like the barn farm, Idaho, Nebraska, whatever. It's a nice prop barn. Got some horses. What the heck? Old Meadow Downs Raceway. 101. Here we got a leaderboard. Wow, I can't imagine doing more than one lap. Oh, that must be the last I'm just assuming that's the last leg of the race, since there was a like one of the checkered flag things. Wow, this is a really confusing track. Just trying to like fly to the end, and it's actually hard. It's like a maze. Oh great, I've started the race. I went through the... I could totally win this race because I'm flying, I'm not driving a vehicle, so I'm not bound by the rules of the road per se. Oh, this is cool. This sim is awesome. I'm just gonna come right out and say it. This is a cool sim. Someone spent a lot of time on this, and it's really neat. I want to walk here through this. Viking Village and Interactive Museum. Oh, this is cool. This is like, I found a real, what do they call that? Is it a weasel? Ermine? Yeah, this is a real, God, I know there's a specific word for this where you find like a hidden fantasy world, like a wardrobe moment or something. I don't know, I'm just making up my own term. Like the witch in the wardrobe. Like I just stepped through a portal and now I'm in this Viking Village. Sorry about that. A little congested. That's cool. Isn't this crazy? Like, think about how crazy this is. Like, I'm flying up a racetrack, like a multi-dimensional Z-axis racetrack, and there's all these different environments. And now I come out and I'm like strolling through a more or less faithfully recreated Viking village. Like, just talk about bizarre. You would never experience this in real life. I really like these props with the runes and stuff. They're a little crude, but actually like surprisingly well made in terms of really interesting construction. I don't really know anything about Viking like fabrication techniques or stuff, but it all looks very like plausible, you know? An empty attic. I just had a flashback to this morning. Pistachio, you are not gonna get any of these ramen noodles. Just give it up. This looks like an almost exact copy of the one I just left. Oh, this is a cool sculpture. Oh yeah, let me paste the SL URL into here. Yeah, let's see, Exisha. That's a really cool sculpture. What the hell is this? It's like a rabbit stuck in a hole. Oh, there he goes. If I was there in real life, I would give that rabbit a huge slap on the ass. Just, you know, propel it. This is interesting. This is like a Viking burial building. I have actually read about these recently in this book called Underland, which is a great book that I highly recommend. It's about the subterranean world throughout history. I thought I was sealed in the tomb there for a minute. That was kind of scary. Yeah, like burials to naturally occurring caves, underground rivers. Um, this book has it all. It's like, oh yeah, and like catacombs, like in Europe. What the hell is this? And anyway, the reason I was talking about that is because I'm learning all about Vikings. This is kind of cool. Because in Underland, the author describes a Viking tomb in detail. Well, a Celtic tomb. It's very similar, I think, like in terms of geography and culture. Maybe not that similar, but similar enough to like there's parallels. Oh, this is pretty awesome. I like the crackling fire sounds. So anyway, the description of that tomb from the book closely matched the what I just saw there in that like burial tent or whatever you want to call it. Cool. Interestingly enough, I was just reading about the runic alphabet the other day, and I can't remember why I was reading about it. It might have been linked to some Wikipedia article or something that I was reading, but they were talking about how once the Christians or the Romans, I think it might have been the Romans, like conquered the Celts, that the runic alphabet like pretty much completely fell out of use. I mean, this has happened countless times throughout civilization where a culture will be eradicated by another culture, and like to the extent that if you are even caught speaking your native tongue, you will be executed. You're like forced to speak the language of the conquerors. It's just kind of really fascinating shit. And it's, in the end, it does a tremendous amount of damage to the conquerors themselves, because all of the technology and innovations and knowledge of that culture that's being invaded can be lost. Like if you were really smart, if you were like a very intelligent conqueror, you wouldn't try to destroy the culture that you were conquering. You try to preserve it. You just, alright, I think I'm going in circles now. You would you'd want to analyze it and extract all of the wisdom and knowledge that you could from those peoples, because it's like, especially if you have a culture that's different than your own, it's going to contain a lot of new information that your culture, the conqueror's culture, wouldn't have necessarily encountered or discovered. I mean, you think about all the energy that human civilizations put into survival and treating diseases and everything else. It's just, it's psychotic and insane to throw that away. Alright, I think I've seen everything here, more or less. I might have missed a couple of things, but I think I missed this one over here, but I'm not sure. No, I saw that. Alright, I'm gonna continue along the racetrack. Looks like it's still going up. But yeah, like some invading cultures, like they were just so insane that they would basically conquer another culture and then just burn or destroy like all of their buildings and their manuscripts and everything. Like, how insane is that? Like, it makes no sense. You could just take all that information and like lock it up inside a vault and save it, and then in the future analyze it and extract information that would make your civilization more powerful, because you're like amalgamating. This is cool. Now I'm in like the jungles of China or something. Like, what I'm getting at is that knowledge is precious and valuable, and to destroy it is not merely a sign of disrespect, it's a sign of psychosis. Yeah, I feel like I'm in King Kong here. I think that's the idea. So yeah, anyway, after, a lot of times what would happen is a culture would invade another culture, wipe them out, destroy all their artifacts and knowledge, and then they would be like decades later, sometimes even a lot longer than that, they would sort of revisit the cultural wealth of that society that they wiped out, and then they would be like, well shit, we can't read any of this script because we burned all of the books, you know, that had the knowledge in it that would have allowed us to read these things. And then it takes, you know, some poor academic a decade or longer to fully decipher the language, and then when they read whatever surviving relics exist, they find like all sorts of amazing information and historical data that's very useful, medical breakthroughs, you know, whatever. There's just so many things that are lost when cultures are destroyed. Oh, this just goes on and on. Like, okay, now I'm in Stonehenge. I'm like in the magic crystal realm here. This is... Uh-oh, what's going on? It's freezing up there for a minute. I'm still on... I'll tell you what, you know, I've been on North 101, like, a lot, and I've never seen Stonehenge. But I don't know, maybe it's out there somewhere. The Stonehenge Speedway, that's what I'm looking for. This is a truly epic build. I think now that I have the sacred Viking knowledge, I can uncover the meaning behind these runestone highway markers. God, the whole video is just going to be about this one sim. But I mean, how lucky is that right off the bat I found a cool sim? Considering the last video I went through like, I don't know, 20 sims before I found a good one. There's a bunch of like pagan relics. Oh, there's Stonehenge. I finally found it. This is kind of beautiful. Tree, cut down tree. Every time I see a tree stump, it just makes me really uncomfortable. It's like seeing a headless person, you know? I've never really considered myself a tree hugger, but as I've gotten older, and especially as I've learned more about ecosystems and stuff like that, I've really come to respect trees in a way that I didn't when I was younger. Although I have slightly mixed feelings because actually this is kind of a cool story. So this was quite a while ago. Oh, cool. It came out of like a water layer. So this is like a city underwater, or like Hong Kong or New York or something. This is pretty cool. Metro West Speedway. Let's see what it says over here. Still just 101. Maybe one of these signs will clue me in. No, just says Metro, so Metro, kind of a generic term for a city, urban environment. Yeah, so anyway, years ago, this like local timber company was going to buy this isolated plot of land in a nearby state forest. They were basically using like eminent domain or something to seize this territory, and they were going to log a bunch of old growth trees. Like, the minimum age of these redwoods was like 100 years old, you know? And a lot of people got kind of upset about it, understandably. And then of course there was the other side, the counterpoint, that was like, you know, they're just trees and there's a lot of trees out there. But this was kind of like a sacred space for some people. And at the time I was sort of a little bit on the fence, I guess. Although I wanted to educate myself. So I decided to hike out to this remote grove, which, like, here was the funny thing, like, I read all this stuff about what was going on, like the controversy. Oh, this is cool. Now I'm in space. Man, I'll actually get to see the red planet for which this sim is named. And I was a little annoyed that all the, like, Treehuggers were, like, writing about this grove of trees like they'd been there personally, but they hadn't. Nobody had really, except for the land surveyors, because it was so remote. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take my camera and I'm gonna hike out there and find this grove and take photos, and then at least there will be some kind of evidence that people can look at and make better decisions and be like, yeah, this is some special place that needs to be preserved. So I got my GPS in my backpack, and I even had camping gear and stuff, because I didn't know how long it was going to take me to get out there, or if I'd get lost or what. But this was back in the hardcore days. I only wore flip-flops. I didn't even wear hiking boots back then. It was just flip-flops 24/7. I can't believe there's another level to this. It just goes on and on and on. Does this racetrack ever end? It's like gonna go literally into outer space. And so I parked my truck like way out at the very end of this gated logging road, and it was kind of a sketchy place, but luckily my truck was kind of a junker anyway, so I wasn't too worried about it. But like you saw, there were like wrecks of vehicles that had either been abandoned or had went off the side of the road and were just rusting. People are dumping trash out there. This is a cool dragon. So there were just like old refrigerators and stuff full of God knows what, just like sitting on the side of the road. And I had heard reports from a lot of people who like were concerned about this expedition I was going on, that they people had their cars like jacked and stuff out there. But I just thought that was like nonsense. I was pretty young and naive. So anyway, I parked my car and I got out, and this was like early in the morning. I think I got there around 9 o'clock. This is cool. It's like a dragon, like the layer of the dragons, kind of, where it's the highest level, only it's not, because you bet your bottom dollar this thing goes up another 1,000 levels. This is amazing. Like, how did they even have enough prims to build this thing? It's ridiculous how many, like, look at these racetracks. Oh, those are pretty big chunks. So yeah, anyway, I park my car and I start hiking. And, great, the lava realm. I'm like literally racing into the heart of the sun. Or the belly of a volcano or something. Wow, this is cool. Oh yeah. Where am I? Like, literally the sun? It kinda, yeah, it looks like the sun. And that's lava. And the whole track is like molten. This is pretty amazing. Yeah, no, this wouldn't fly in real life. For real. God, what am I gonna do when I get to the top of this thing? I'm gonna have to, like, reevaluate my role in the universe. So yeah, so I'm walking out on these remote, like, logging roads. Eventually, like, I came to the end of the logging road. Like, that's how remote this place was. Like, there wasn't even a road. So I just had to go off into the woods, following my GPS, trying to find this remote-ass grove of old-growth redwoods. And, like, eventually I found the tags, like the tree tags. They put these, like, ribbons, like, plastic ribbons around the trees. So is this under construction? Anna Erotica. So let me get this straight. It's like a crane that's used in some sort of weird kinky sex games. Like, you hang from the crane while you're being violated by the hook. I don't know. Interesting. I mean, just imagine in the real world if a sex toy manufacturer also made heavy machinery, like construction cranes. That could be pretty interesting. Only in Second Life, folks. And, yeah, so I went off road, and I'm just, like, hiking through the woods, and it was pretty hardcore. It was, like, going over giant fallen trees. Like, nobody had... Now I'm in the tropical mangroves or something. Nobody had really been, like, doing any maintenance out there, you know, off-road. And I ended up on this hill. It was like the last leg of the journey. And it was a really steep hill, and I'm like climbing over these dead trees in my flip-flops, trying not to kill myself. I eventually got up to the very top, and I'm like looking down, and I can see everything. Well, this one's just in the sky, apparently. I like the build quality better up here. This cement, like an overpass, like a freeway overpass. That's totally my jam. And I can see the whole grove before me, like spread out, all the trees. And yeah, it was beautiful. I took a whole bunch of pictures, and I was like, yeah, I can see why people would want these trees cut down. Like, 'cause there's more to them. And now I'm in a trailer park. This is cool. Y'all come back now, you hear? Yeah, there's these are nice signs. Wow. It's articulated neon there. That's beautiful. Oh, it's got all the... It's a nice build. It's a lot of freaking polys, though. Death Row Designs. Seriously? That's not too bad. It's fairly optimized. Alright, let's see what we can see here. Yeah, so, I mean, having seen it with my own eyes, I felt a little more, I don't know, good about the Treehugger position. And this, by this time, Like, I started at 9. By this time, I think it was probably 5. And this was during, like, the late summer, I believe. I do remember it was a full moon that night. But yeah, it was late, and I was like, well, shit, I've got to go all the way back the way I came. I didn't really plan it super well. I mean, I did in the sense that I brought camping gear, but I honestly hadn't intended on camping. Alright, on to the next level. I hadn't intended on camping. I thought, oh, I'll go out there, take some pictures, and then I'll go back to my car and be done with it. But because I didn't like really plan out my hike very well, it ended up that I was walking home in like the pitch dark on this remote ass logging road out in pretty much the middle of nowhere, in a place where people have apparently died by the dozens. The people just go out into these woods and they never come back. And this was probably one of the closest near-death experiences I've ever had, in the more abstract sense than in the actual sense. Like, at no time did I ever feel like I was in danger exactly. However, I did feel something really curious as I was hiking back in like the pitch blackness with like these towering redwoods, like 100-foot tall redwoods neck to neck on every side of me, where like you could just, looking up, you would see this tiny little strip of sky or stars. I mean, it was just like black sky with a few little sparkly stars in it. And there were mountain lions out there, bears. There were animals that potentially could have tried to attack me. I mean, I had my eyes open. I knew what to do if like I encountered a mountain lion. But I was like not really expecting to come across anything like that so far out in the woods, where they basically keep to themselves, and if they hear a human, they're just going to run away. And they're not starving because they have plenty of territory. But it was pretty scary. What I felt when I was walking back in the dark was a new like expansion of consciousness, like a heightened level of awareness of reality in the world. Like, this is cool. I have no idea what this is supposed to be, but I like the landscape. Yeah, I'm trying to just like think of how exactly to characterize the experience. Like, I felt, here was the weird thing, and this could have just been because it was so dark and I was afraid, and I was, at this point, it was like 9 p.m. or so, and I was in pain, like serious pain, because I'd been walking for 12 hours, pretty much straight, hiking through the woods and walking on these roads. And my hips were like, every step was hurting. My legs were kind of like weak. So I was fatigued. I was pretty fatigued. And like, but it was really cold too, and I was like, I don't really want to stop. I want to just keep going and see if I can get back to my car for morning. I didn't really want to spend the night. And I was just looking up at the trees, and I felt this sense of menace. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like, the trees, it wasn't just that they were uncaring, like indifferent. They literally kind of felt like they were like wishing me ill, you know, like, I don't know, it just sounds stupid and woo-woo now, but that's how it felt. And I think that was probably just like my fears being magnified. Oh yeah, and then my GPS died, and I'd been following it all day, and it looked like the road I was on, the logging road I was on, was gonna loop around, and so I'd been following it. But when my GPS died, I wasn't sure anymore, because it was kind of like at the peak of the curve that would have headed back to my original location. So I had this option where I'm like out here in the pitch dark on this long road in the middle of nowhere with a dead GPS, looking in either direction, thinking like, this is the fork in the road, this is where I decide if I want to keep walking around the path that I think is going to curve back, or turn back the way I came and follow the longer path that I know will lead me back to my car. And I honestly believe that that was like a moment where I was sort of deciding whether or not I was going to live or die, because those people that walk out into these woods and just disappear are the ones that like take that path that they think is going to loop around, like, pretty much, in my opinion. I mean, there's other reasons that people just disappear into the woods, but I think the people that weren't planning on disappearing, that was probably what happened. So I was, at the time, I didn't even think about any of that stuff. I didn't really even know that this place was renowned for people disappearing into, but I was like, I'm not gonna go the GPS route. I'm just gonna walk back the way I came, even though it's gonna take me like 6 hours to get back to my car. At least I will know that I'm not just going deeper into the wilderness in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, I walked for another 6 hours in complete agony in the pitch black forest, chilled to the bone, because it was actually insanely cold that year. And I made it back to my car like early in the morning, and I was never more glad to sit down on a soft car seat and turn the key and hear an engine. And I thought to myself, you know, those trees they would not have cared one iota if I had just dropped dead and rotted under their canopy. And that was like another turning point for me, when I was like, okay, I get the Treehugger view, I really do, and it's essential to like protecting natural resources and helping us to survive as a species. And there's other reasons too to do that, to be conservation minded, because trees are beautiful and they're alive. That's also important. But also, we need to keep in mind that they are not our friends. They don't care about us the way we care about them. I mean, on some totally abstract level, they probably have consciousness, and they consequently have some sort of emotions. Not like our emotions, but emotions. God, will this ever end? Seriously, I don't think this has an end. It just goes on forever. DriveIn Theater. That's a cool sign too. Kind of want to wait for the whole thing to res. Nice textures. I love Americana, shit like that. There's the theater. Friday the 13th. Wonder if there really is a movie that plays out here. That would be surreal. I think there is. I think this is an actual, like, working media streaming device over there. How bizarre. This is one of the weirdest things I've come across in Second Life, and only weird because it's so not weird on the surface, and everything within it is so, like, wholesome and normal. But, like, as an intellectual construct, it's very, very bizarre. Like, really, you're on this giant racetrack that has, like, worlds at regular intervals with, like, weird features, like Viking history and drive-in theaters playing Friday the 13th. Grab a sheet, take a seat. And who knows what other new weird wonders live out there. So yeah, my opinion is that hardcore tree huggers and environmentalists, some of them go too far and they romanticize nature and they deify it, and they think that it's like a two-way relationship, and it isn't always. In fact, a lot of times it's a one-way relationship, or it's a bi-directional one-way relationship where, like, humans are, like, pillaging the environment and the environment is, like, completely uncaring about humans. So, I mean, it's kind of bad in both directions. There's a little sauna that looks cozy. Igloos. Emperor penguins. I just learned something amazing about these things. They're the deepest diving bird in the world, and they can dive down like 2,000 meters underwater, I think it is. Maybe even deeper. I honestly can't remember the exact depth, but they're like submarines, which is crazy because they're a bird. They have wings. Like, yeah, they can't fly with those wings. They're just flippers essentially, but they're birds. So this is kind of a nice little thing out here, like a... Oh, this is so weird. I just can't get over the scale of this build. Like, there's giant racetracks, and then there's like these marshmallows that are like decorated. That's like the sub-millimeter scale to the like megameter scale in the same sim. That just really blows my mind. But yeah, like, I feel like the people, the environmentalists who respect nature, oh wait, I've seen this exact build before. I mean, this barn structure. I've seen this like on another sim, which is kind of interesting. And you just can't escape Christmas. Like, even on this sim, like, I thought that this was just going to be a crazy racetrack. Is Christmas really so, like, psychologically dominant in people's minds that it's like an unavoidable cultural thing? Oh, by the way, this is the top, isn't it? I reached the top finally, and it's Christmas. Christmas farm. Look at those apples. Wow, that's some beautiful apples. And someone spent a long time on that beautiful sign. There's like a Christmas tree farm up here. That's like cool props. Oh, this was worth the journey. I mean, like, it took me a long time to get, like, how long have I been streaming for? Like 54 minutes to get to the top. Well, about like 50 minutes to get all the way from the bottom to the top of this thing. I mean, I could have gone a lot faster, admittedly, but if I was on a motorcycle driving up that road, it probably would have taken me 2 hours. Which is kind of interesting, like as a conceptual model. Who is this built for? Like, who has the patience to spend 2 hours driving on a road in a virtual world? I certainly don't. I barely have the patience to fly for an hour. But yeah, this is the top. This is it. Seems like an appropriate ending, although I will say I feel like the parking lot is a little small considering the overall linear capacity for throughput of traffic of the entire course is probably in the thousands, if not tens of thousands, so this parking lot is really small. But of course, given how little traffic actually goes through any given sim in Second Life, they never have to worry about that. So here's the finish line. Here I go. There, I just did it. I finished the race. Wow. That was awesome. Highly recommend. 2 thumbs up. This is cool. And it took me back to a cool place in my head too. I hadn't thought about that trek for a long time. Oh, look at the penguins are playing. Do 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 do. The ice is slippery. That's pretty cool. Like my avatar was like sliding on the ice. I don't even know how the hell they scripted that. Yeah. So, yeah, respecting nature and like appreciating the fact that it is for the most part indifferent, and many elements of nature are bigger and stronger and older and more dangerous than we are. And yeah, I think that's a really crucial component of caring about nature and the natural world. And if you're just one of those like tree huggers, like he's just like, yeah, trees are so sacred and precious and beautiful, and hugging a tree, it's like people like that should just ask themselves, like, is a tree ever gonna hug you back? And it's not that you shouldn't care about things that can't care about you. It's more just that, like, are your feelings maybe completely misplaced, you know? Like, doesn't look super comfortable. Lounge. There we go. That's my style right there. Ooh, winter is online. I guess it's winter now. Just kidding, that's a friend. Yeah, so a lot to think about. A lot to think about for sure. I'd hang out here for a while. Hell yeah, I would. Although I'm not sure I like this open space here. I let a lot of cold air in. Yeah, nice environment. Yeah, I think that pretty much concludes this episode of Neotoy's Story Explores the Wonders of Second Life. And Second Life is clearly wondrous. If you watch this video and you're like, meh, well then you should leave and never come back, because this is an awesome sim, a really great experience, one of a kind, until somebody else goes through the whole thing just like I did. Which is the whole point of this video series, really, I guess. I want other people to see how cool Second Life is, feel the feelings that I feel, the exhilaration, the wonder of discovery. I don't know, it's just a really cool thing, especially in light of all the crazy shit that's coming down the pipe for us millennials and Generation Xers and Zoomers. Who knows? The world could end tomorrow, you know, so smoke 'em while you got 'em, I guess. And remember, when you're out walking in the middle of the woods in the dead of night and your GPS dies and you are asking yourself, should I risk it and follow that path in front of me that I think is going to loop around, or should I just go back the way that I came? Go back the way that you came, because it's a guaranteed success unless a mountain lion eats you, versus potentially disappearing into the wilderness and never being heard from again. That's my word of wisdom for this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode, which hopefully will be next Wednesday, starting around 3 o'clock like this, or sooner, 2:30, 3 o'clock, something like that. Yeah, happy holidays, everybody.